What if Doctor Who hadn't been axed in 1989? That is something many have tried to guess at, and now it's my turn. I'll be going through this concept at the rate of one season per episode. These videos are based on information released by John Nathan Turner, Andrew Cartmel, Ben Aaronovitch, and a lot, and I mean a lot, of guesswork. So, Season 41, the first for incoming producer Tony Redston, and the third for script editor Russell T Davies, the sixth since the character of the Rogue first appeared, the last featuring Kate O'Mara, and the first season for the 11th Doctor as portrayed by Anthony Head. Firstly, while Doctor Who's 40th anniversary movie was in production, Redston met with Sandeman and RTD to help interlink the movie with his series, setting it up. The most notable difference between Sandeman's Doctor Who and Redston's Doctor Who is the fact that he decided to lock the Doctor down to one place and one time, similar to early Pertwee. However, unlike Pertwee, he isn't locked down to Earth but instead Gallifrey, and as Lord President no less. The Doctor had of course been Lord President twice before, but he always fudged it up. However, this time, the Keeper was adamant that he must remain in office, so he's essentially grounded. This was done by Redston to increase the possibility of whole season serialisation. This meant, unlike before where you'd have 8 serials featuring 4 half-an-hour parts, you would now have one story spanning the whole season, comprising a brand new format of 8 1 hour and 30-minute episodes. Where before each season would be made up of 8 2-hour serials, it was now 8 90-minute episodes, which wasn't much different. However, all of these 8 episodes were linked together as if they were parts in one story. Although, as there were 8 and they were 90 minutes long, each episode would take on its own main narrative, but subplots and side stories would continue from other episodes, and effects from these main narratives would be felt in later episodes. To Redston, this was a gamble, as the BBC weren't confident that the audience would sit there for 90 minutes every Saturday for 8 weeks and watch Doctor Who. As a result of this, for both syndication and repeat releases of this series, each episode was split into 2 to make 16 45-minute episodes. However, for the first broadcast they would remain in the original format. This series was to be like, or since 1999, co-produced with Paramount Television. With the change in production, Paramount decided they wanted some of their people actually working on it instead of just providing funding and distributing it. So Paramount had Ira Steven Behr, former executive producer of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, to work as an executive producer on Doctor Who. Because of this, BBC Wales decided to place one of their executives on the show as well to work with Behr. They placed Julie Gardner as an executive producer. Finally, similar to season 18 in 1980 when J&T took over, Barry Letts was brought in to help out as an executive producer. Like that, Stephen Garwood would be placed as another executive producer to provide guidance to Redston for this season. The creative partnership of Tony Redston, Russell T Davies, Ira Steven Behr, Julie Gardner and Stephen Garwood would end up working really well on this series, and it would give it a very different feel. Redston did, however, want his series to feel like a continuation of Sandeman's and not an entirely new reimagining, so many plot threads started in Sandeman's Who continued in this first series. The most notable one would have been the war between the Beloshian people and the Poplin people. Sandra Armstrong, the Doctor's previous companion, was also a Beloshian, but now she's dead. This conflict would be the main story of the series, and everything would bounce off that. It also plays on the Doctor's own self, as he has a deep personal connection to the Baloches through Sandra, especially as one of the first things his Doctor did was to lead Sandra to her death. This season would also be revolutionary in the fact there was no proper companion character. Instead, we feature a proper main cast, as the show is for the most part set in one place. Our characters are the Doctor, Lord President of Gallifrey, the Rogue, Vice President of Gallifrey, the Rani, leader of the opposition, the Keeper, Watcher of Time and the Matrix, a mentor to the Doctor, a supreme authority kind of like a king, Leela, leader of the Outsiders' rights movement, Franks, an assistant to the Doctor in political matters, someone who can leave Gallifrey instead of the Doctor basically. Also K9 would feature as Leader's robot dog. Also, you can see just from the characters in this season, a lot of developments are possible, especially in the running span of 720 minutes or 12 hours. Now, as well as this, the TARDIS would not appear at all in the series, as the Keeper has locked it away in a warehouse out of the Doctor's reach, so he is very much tied down to Gallifrey. Our main settings are the Panopticon, where a lot of the season's action will take place, and the Doctor's office. As for the title sequence of this season, we get something quite different. It opens with a compilation of all the previous incarnations of the Doctor: Hartnell, Troughton, Pertwee, Tom Baker, Davison, Colin Baker, McCoy, Griffiths, McGann and Grant. And then we go into a John Pertwee-esque vortex as the seal of Rassilon appears in flames, and the new Doctor Who logo emerges, followed by Anthony Head's name before it disappears, and a bit later on we get our co-stars Derek Jacobi, Don Wellington, Kate O'Mara, Louis Jameson and John Patton. Then we get Anthony Head's presidential portrait appearing before the episode title appears with the Citadel in the background. Now, without further ado, let's get on with it. The Doctor is now President of Gallifrey. The people of Gallifrey, however, are not fond of the Doctor, do not like the fact he wasn't elected. The Doctor also doesn't want to be President, but he learns that he has no choice in the matter. With his enemy, the Rogue, as his Vice President, the Doctor must now deal with Gallifrey's many problems, from policy and timeline interference, to the treatment of outsiders, to dealing with his own Parliament. However, a new threat looms over Gallifrey, one the Doctor doesn't see until it's too late. This episode really sets it up. It's just an episode 1. The Populin don't appear until the cliffhanger, where they demand the Doctor releases one of their own people from the mysterious Order of Rassilon. Mostly, however, this episode focuses on the Doctor dealing with domestic issues. Getting used to being president, we see leaders fight with the outsiders, and the Rani attempting to stop a very important non-interference bill being passed through the Time Lord Senate. This episode would have opened up with a 2-minute long previously segment which would have summed up pretty much everything for a new viewer. It would have featured clips from The Deadly Assassin, The Invasion of Time, Remembrance of the Daleks, Lung Barrow, Nevermind the Rogue, No Sky in Space, Illusions of Life, The Other, and Doctor Who the Movie. All in all, this would go quite well, and set a new path for Doctor Who not seen since 1970. With a gun pointed to his head, the Doctor informs Apocalypse that he has never heard of the Order of Rassilon or their agent, but he tells them he will investigate. With the help of the Poplin and a gun to his head, the Doctor uncovers a rather disturbing truth about the dark and most hypocritical side of Gallifreyan society. This episode is really when we get into the meat of the series. It continues directly on from episode 1's cliffhanger, with the Poplin arriving and asking for their agent to be released from the Order of Rassilon. The Order of Rassilon, as we discover throughout this episode, are an ancient order of Time Lord monks who over the years have become more of a black ops group to the Time Lords. They go into dangerous situations and intervene with them for the apparent good of the universe. It is also revealed that it was in fact the Order of Rassilon who rescued the Doctor in the War Games before handing him over to the High Council for the trial. As of now, the Prophet, a mysterious old monk played by Michael Gambon, is running the Order. But he does offer it to the Doctor. He tells him that he should use it. He should guide them. He should use the Order for the good of the universe. But the Doctor refuses. The Doctor says that he is president now, and the Order must be stopped. They aren't right. In the end, the Poplin agent is returned to them from the Order. The leader attempts to legitimize the outsiders by trying to ambush the Poplin, but fail. We find out a lot about the war the Poplin are having with the Beloshian people. Finally, the episode ends with another cliffhanger. The Poplin now have their agent back, but instead of just leaving, they threaten the Time Lords with the prospect of revealing the horrible truths of the Order of Rassilon to everyone if they don't deliver 5 billion weapons to the front lines of their war with the Beloshians. The Doctor sends a party of the Rogue, Leela, K9 and Franks to the front line of the Poplin war against the peace-loving, turned warring Beloshian people to deliver the weapons. However, the Rogue and Franks don't make it to the front lines and instead end up on a deserted moon with 4 dying Poplin. This is where the series starts to take a turn of some of the more self-contained style stories but still be part of an overall plot. We begin where the last episode left off, where the Doctor reluctantly sends the Rogue, Leela, K9 and Franks to deliver the weapons to the front lines of the Beloshian Poplin war. However, there was an attack on the ship from an anti-Gallifreyan resistance group, and the Rogue and Franks end up on a deserted moon with 4 dying Poplin. This episode really explores the horrors of the Poplin War and what it's doing to the Poplin soldiers, and we start to see an outside compassion from the Rogue as the Poplin soldiers die. Parallel to this, we get 2 other stories. The first being with Leela and K9 actually on the front lines delivering the weapons, and they do end up making it off safely, only to deal with the fact that billions more Beloshians will die because of what they've done. And the other story deals with the Doctor still trying to get rid of this pesky Order of Rassilon. In the end, the Rogue and Franks are picked up by Leela and K9 and they take them back with the dead bodies of 4 Poplin soldiers to cremate at Gallifrey. However, the episode once again ends with a cliffhanger, as when they return to Gallifrey, the Rogue runs into the middle of the Panopticon and collapses, screaming. After 2 days of surgery, the Rogue wakes up to find 50 years of extra memories in his head. Memories of him in a prison cell with no one else. The Rogue can't handle what has happened, and must not only deal with how this has happened, but also with the terrible guilt he feels after doing the worst thing in his life. This episode continues with a more self-contained feel. It revolves around the Rogue as he discovers that while on the moon with the Poplin, one implanted 50 years of memories into the Rogue's head, with him in a prison cell. All of the Rogue's empathy for the Poplin that he experienced in the last episode has now been lost, as he embarks on a trip to hunt down every Poplin he can find and get these memories out of his head that are driving him mad. We also focus on the Rani as she plans to make moves to take over Gallifrey for herself by manipulating those around her and forging alliances in the Order of Rassilon. The Doctor also starts opening relations with the Beloshians on the possibility of finding an end to the war. This leads the episode to end with the Doctor announcing that from now on, the Time Lords will be supporting the Beloshians in their war with the Poplin in every aspect. Leela takes Franks on an expedition to the wastelands of Gallifrey in the hopes of finding a forgotten tribe, but when they get there, they instead find a legion of the Order of Rassilon holding off Poplin forces in secret. It's only a matter of time before the Poplin break through and take Gallifrey for themselves. It's up to Leela and Franks, with no communication from the capital, to stop the Poplin reaching the Panopticon. Meanwhile, the Doctor and the Rogue find out more about the Rani's covert dealings with the Order of Rassilon. This episode takes us in another direction and shows us that the Poplin have already managed to get onto Gallifrey. The Order of Rassilon, led by the Prophet, have secretly gone to deal with them. Not even the Doctor knows about this. When Leela and Franks go to the wastelands, they find a battle going on between the Poplin and the Order of Rassilon. They have no choice but to join in and fight to stop the Poplin from reaching the capital and taking over Gallifrey. Once again, we follow the Rani's dodgy dealings with the Order of Rassilon as she tries to take over Gallifrey for herself. However, she fails as the Order of Rassilon have no interest in her as she is not in a great enough position of power. By the end of the story, however, the Poplin do manage to reach the capital, and we get a very immersive and expensive battle between the Time Lords and the Poplin, and of course the Time Lords win. They capture all of the Poplin, and the Rogue is left to interrogate them. He finds out that a group known as Uvagnoxi has been supplying the Poplin with many tools and supplies off the books. The Keeper then decides to send the Doctor to Uvagnoxi to go undercover and shut them down. And that is the cliffhanger to the next episode, Trust is a Lie. The Doctor, working undercover for the Keeper, with his memories temporarily purged, infiltrates the Uvagnoxi, an off-the-books group that has been supplying the Poplin in their war against the Belosians. The Doctor, working on his mission, ends up deeply intertwined in the group, and ends up greatly befriending the man who will eventually betray and watch die. This episode would have been the standout episode of the season and a real fan favourite. We would have seen the Doctor with his memories purged by the Keeper going undercover in the Uvagnoxi and infiltrating it before shutting it down. The Doctor becomes rather friendly with a member called Quilly, and they come to trust each other as they make the shuttle runs of supply to the front lines. It's only towards the end of the episode that the Doctor gets a mental twinge and gets his memories back, now a trusted member of the Uvagnoxi. The Doctor, however, finds it hard to let go of this new life he lives, and especially finds it hard to betray Quilly. But he does, and he allows the Uvagnoxi to be found by the Belosians and destroyed. At the end of the episode, we see the Doctor walking across the former headquarters of the Uvagnoxi in flames. He walks up to Quilly's dead body and picks out a piece of documentation from his pocket. A piece of documentation stating that the supplies he was supposed to deliver next were not to the Poplin, but to another party, to Telos, the planet of the Cybermen. The Doctor, after finding out about the Cybermen, makes plans to work with the Order of Rassilon and send in a group of professional agents to spy on the Cybermen. The Doctor, back on Gallifrey, must lead this mission remotely, making sure everything goes to plan, and if everything does go to plan, both the Cybermen and the Poplin won't be around much longer. This episode is the start of really what you could call the finale. It focuses on this conflict between many races of the universe, including the Cybermen, the Time Lords, the Belosians, the Sontarans, the Rutons, the Metatraxi. The Doctor works reluctantly with the Order to set up a small undercover task force to go into the conflicts and spy on the Cybermen and the Poplin, gathering as much data on them they can find in hopes of exploiting a weakness and ending this war. However, the task force is caught by the Cybermen, and the Time Lords are rightly blamed, leading to chaos in the conference, and a rather expensive battle scene between the Cybermen with the Poplin against the Time Lords with the Belosians. The Time Lords and Belosians only make it out of the conference when the Cyber Controller orders the Cyber Fleet to set course for Gallifrey. Mass processing is necessary. As we do have a conference in this episode, it does end up having a giant cast list, with many returning races and characters from the past. We have all the Poplin from the series, as well as some from the Bolossians from Season 39's No Sky in Space. We also have the Metatraxi from Season 27's Earthade, the Sontaran Commanders from Season 37's Voyage of the Sontarans, and Alpha Centauri making a guest appearance from Curse and Monster of Peladon. This story is probably the most like the Curse and Monster of Peladon in a while, and a lot of the time is spent at the conference. The official delegates sent by Gallifrey are the Rogue and Franks, however there are of course also unofficial agents undercover. The Doctor and the Keeper command this mission from Gallifrey with a remote feed, and we do explore the conflict not just between the Doctor and the Keeper, but between the Order of Rassilon's leader, the Prophet. So, with a fleet of Cybermen heading for Gallifrey to process every last Time Lord, what will happen? The end is nigh. The Cyber fleet will be at Gallifrey soon. No one is safe. Nothing will stop them. Every Time Lord will be processed and Gallifrey shall become steel. The Doctor has never crawled cowardly. Almost never. This episode is the end of the series and it goes out fighting. Beginning on Gallifrey, the Cybermen are coming and the Doctor orders a protective force field to be placed around Gallifrey. He orders for the planet to get ready for a battle. The Doctor then gives in and takes command of the Order of Rassilon, only for the Prophet to shut down the force field and then tell the Doctor that he's actually a Cyberman spy, and he attempts to kill the Doctor. The Rani comes in and saves him, but she gets hit by the Prophet's weapon and starts to die. The Doctor manages to overpower the Cyberman and get the Rani into a safe place to regenerate, but she can't. She just can't regenerate. Suddenly the Prophet wakes up and tells the Doctor that he only has to allow Gallifrey to be processed and the Rani won't die. The Doctor then viciously kills the Prophet, and in a state of anger, he walks onto the front lines of the assault and begins fighting the Cybermen. However, left, right and centre, Time Lords are being processed. But it then turns out that there are only one faction of people who can stop them, Leela and the Outsiders. The Doctor orders everyone to retreat and tells the Outsiders to take front of the assault. Since the Outsiders are Gallifreyan and not Time Lords, they are able to fight the Cybermen without being processed, as they are only told to process Time Lords. Concurrently, the Poplins show up in the Panopticon and try and set off a bomb. However, the Keeper sees this coming and takes the Order of Rassilon there to find the Poplin planting the bomb. They have a very massive fight scene in there, which is intercut with a battle outside, after two very long action scenes where the Poplin and the Cybermen are defeated. The episode and the series ends with the captured Poplin signing an agreement to end the war with the Bolossians, and the Doctor announcing that he and the Bolossians will be forming the Gallifreyan Union of Planets to unite the galaxy after its turbulent 3 years. And then one Bolossian, Fentanel, tells the Doctor that he can help him with something. The Doctor asks what, and he replies that he can help along the Rani's regeneration process. She doesn't have to die. They go to the Doctor's office. Lying there is the Rani, almost dead. Fentanel places his hand on the Rani and smiles. Suddenly a burst of orange energy appears around the Rani and she transforms into a new body, that of Siobhan Redmond. The Doctor asks who he is and he only says that he is just more than a Bolossian. The Doctor asks again and he replies with, "A while back I was in the Bolossian space program, way before our conflict with Poplin, and I met this remarkable woman. Commander Sandra Armstrong was her name. And I know you feel bad about what happened to her, but I can tell you that she is not dead. She is very much alive." The Doctor just answers, amazed, "What do you mean?" And Fentanel says, "I can't tell you, but you will know soon, and Sandra will be waiting for you in one shape or form." And with that we get a reused shot of Gallifrey from the movie, and the series ends. So there you have it, season 41, Redson's first season, and what an impression he made. Please post your thoughts in the comment section below, and stay tuned for season 42.